Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the final session of the International Rare Disease Showcase, here brought to you by Beacon. Excited about this session today, and it's been a really nice ride through the showcase so far. I think there's been some brilliant sessions and great engagement from you. So thank you so much for that, and I hope this will be a really nice engaging session to wrap things off with. So to start the final session, once again, a thank you to everyone who supported the showcase and helped make it a success. Our corporate partner Helix, our gold sponsors Pulse Infoframe, Bionacle EMAS and Apparito, our silver sponsor Use of Pharma, our bronze sponsor Gilead, PTC Therapeutics, Roche and Rhythm Pharmaceuticals, and of course the support we receive from the National Lottery Community Fund here in the UK is really appreciated. So this session is hopefully going to dive into this issue. Does location matter? We're looking at the experiences of diagnosis, access and care in people themselves affected by rare conditions, and that's something that we're really excited to dive into in detail. But before we get into that, it's time to really focus on another of the projects that we run here at Beacon, and that is the Student Voice Prize, which is in collaboration with Medics for Rare Diseases, who hopefully you've seen in and out of the showcase over the past few days. So I'm going to pass over to my colleague Phil, who's going to dive into that project and take you through what we've been doing. Phil, over to you.
Thanks, Rick. I'll just share my screen now for you and get the lovely Student Voice Prize logo up for you. So as Rick said, my name is Phil, or Philippa, and I am the projects coordinator here at Beacon. And this is a project that I spend a lot of time on, usually towards the end of the year. And we work in collaboration with Medics for Rare Diseases to pull this project off. And it's something that we've been running since 2014. So 2021 saw our kind of 8th year of running this competition. And I'm just going to say a big thank you to our SVP sponsors as well. So our gold sponsors, Lingomatics and Use of Pharma, and our silver sponsors, Castello Medical, Transcript and Dolon. So you might be wondering, what is the Student Voice Prize? And I'm going to tell you right now. So it's an annual international essay competition for medical, biomedical, nursing students, and basically anyone who's going to be practicing in the healthcare space in the future and be kind of having that contact with patients in the future, and potentially rare disease patients, or probably most definitely rare disease patients. And what we do is each year we pose 3 questions on our website centered around kind of rare diseases, the patient experience, the role patient groups play in things like research, and the personal experiences of these patients as well. And the reason that the Student Voice Prize came into existence is to address the severe lack of medical education around rare diseases in the medical school. And we all know that rare diseases are individually rare but collectively common. So it's actually really likely that medical students will come across rare diseases at some point in their career. But in medical school, this isn't really addressed. They're told to look for common things because common things are common, and we want to kind of encourage them to look at the zebra in the room rather than just the horses, as the old term goes, and say, look, you might come across rare, so why not dare to think rare, just in case it happens to you, so you can be prepared and know about these things early on. Now, as it says in the name, we put the student voice and personal reflection at the heart of the prize. We really want to hear how students have been impacted by what they've learned, hear about what this taught them and how this actually changed their perspective on not only rare diseases, but also on medicine and healthcare in general. And we do get some really good feedback that says that this was a really pivotal experience for a lot of students and really kind of changed their perspective and often the way that they approach patients as well. At the bottom, I've said points mean prizes. There's a lot of essay competitions out there for medical students, and we like to think that ours is a little bit different. There's not many or any others, I don't think, focusing on rare diseases. And also, the winner gets their essay published in the Orphanet Journal of Rare Diseases, and the runners-up get blogs on the BMC site, as well as cash prizes and a membership to the Royal Society of Medicine. So there's a lot of really cool prizes as well that we have on offer to really make it worth it. As well as the learning, you do kind of get some cash out of it as well if you want. So I thought I'd just introduce to you some of the themes that we addressed this year on our questions. So question 1 looked at rare diseases and health inequalities. Question 2 looked at rare diseases and intersectionality. And question 3 was around rare diseases and research participation. And we kind of broadly split the questions into these buckets every year, looking at patient experiences, case studies, and also kind of the psychosocial impacts of rare disease. So this year, the Student Voice Prize saw entries from students in 11 different countries and 4 different continents. And we saw our most paired students ever, with 60 students paired with patients and patient group advocates. Now, the patient pairing scheme is a really big part of the competition and something that we think really attracts people to enter. What it is basically is patient advocates are able to apply to be paired with a student, and students are able to be paired with those patient advocates, and we match them together based on kind of student interest and compatibility, and then they're free to have an hour-long conversation over Zoom, whatever kind of video platform they might choose, or just over the telephone in a good old-fashioned way, and they can chat about any aspect of patient experience that they might want to, talk about their daily life, anything the student might be interested in hearing about, and we really think this helps to build connections with future healthcare professionals and the patient groups, and also allows people who might never have been able to talk to a rare disease patient that opportunity to actually have those conversations and see how the experience might be different to other people in the healthcare space, might be the same, and learn about those unique challenges. And we've had some really lovely feedback this year on the patient group pairing scheme, and I just pulled out this quote here that you can see on the screen, where a student called it an irreplaceable experience, which I thought was really nice to hear. So I thought that would be nice for you guys to see as well. So without further ado, here are our 2021 winners. And we're actually joined in this room today by Zainab, and she's going to be talking just after me about her experience and what she learned from writing that essay, and that'll be really exciting for you guys to hear as well. And then we've actually got quite an international panel of winners here. So Gavin is representing Australia, and also he's a medical student, so it's really interesting to see somebody from a different specialty coming as a runner-up. Somebody from our city, Beacon City of Cambridge, and then also Megan, who is from the US. So I would love to now pass over. Oh, actually, I've got an extra slide. Sorry about that, Zainab. So we've realised this year as well that we had so much interest from students that one of the challenges and opportunities that we wanted to kind of tackle next was retaining that interest. So we actually have an event on this year on the 28th February, which is Rare Disease Day, as you will know, where we're bringing together patient advocates, students who've entered the competition in the past, students who haven't, anyone who's attending the showcase today is free to attend as well. So we thought we'd put on this event to try and bring people together in that informal way, to connect people, but also to show medical students where the opportunities are in the space, how they can drive personal development through getting involved with the rare community. Because we've realised this year actually that there's several people from the past who have actually stayed on with their patient groups and kept in contact with the people that they spoke to through the patient pairing scheme. And we thought, how can we actually utilise this for more people so that more people are getting the benefit? So hopefully this will be a stepping stone in trying to achieve that, and we'll see how it goes. But it'd be really great to see you there, and I'm sure we'll be putting the links in the chat in just a second. So without further ado, I'd love to pass over now to Zainab, who's going to be talking to you a bit more about her Student Voice Prize experience.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for attending. I really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about rare disease. My name is Zainab Alani. I'm a first-year medical student at the University of Glasgow, and you can find my social medias for my senior awareness, which will be put in the chat. So I'm sure you're all wanting to hear what my winning essay was about, and it was entitled regarding about intersectionality and my experience as a rare disease patient. So my essay really looked into my experience of going through diagnosis, being an adult, a female, and a young person who was receiving a really difficult lifelong diagnosis. And this was really an unenviable and difficult journey, which I will look into in a moment. So really intersectionality, in case you're wondering, as it's not a word that we hear often, is all the factors that lead into someone's experience in their life. And this could be their race, gender, beliefs, or even religion. So my personal experience of diagnosis is that when I was 15 years old, I was diagnosed with the rare condition, myasthenia gravis. And this was a really difficult journey because as I was young, I was often labelled as lazy and as just being a typical teenager. And I was even laughed at once by an optician when I showed them my drooping eyes, which was really characteristic of myasthenia. I was sent to the hospital. I got taken to A&E. My mum, who was a GP, was actually the one who suggested it could be myasthenia. But when I went to my own GP, I was told, no, she's too young. And when we went to A&E services, I was told that there was too much going on. I was put through MRIs, a lumbar puncture, which is an invasive procedure where they put a needle into your spine. And all this was done while I was still being disregarded as being lazy and just a typical young person who was just trying to avoid school and work. And in the end, it was agreed that I could get a simple blood test to diagnose this condition. And startlingly, my results were 500 times the normal level. And what makes this all so much worse was that I was delivered this diagnosis alone over the phone at the age of 15, which is something nobody would want for their own children or friends. So I hope that this essay, when you get the chance to read it on Rare Disease Day, will really bring awareness to what it's like to experience this process. So I'd like to go into a bit more about my essay and why I chose this intersectionality question. So looking at all the questions, I feel, as you may be able to tell from my story, that this resonated most strongly with myself, as I felt I could really draw parallels with what it was asking me to talk about. And with my patient as both my perspective, as both a medical student and rare disease patient, I thought I could really open people's eyes to what it's like to experience something, and not only for myself, but for my family. And when I applied for this essay, in all honesty, I wrote it passionately, but then I forgot I'd even applied, as I had a really difficult time over Christmas as my dear gran passed away. So when I received this award, I was so pleased with myself, and my family were equally proud. But looking back to this, after looking into what intersectionality was, I really feel I was able to even educate myself and friends and family about what this meant to me and to the wider rare disease community. As I know from my friends and fellow myasthenia patients that many of us feel the same experience and have to undergo this unenviable process of being disregarded, dismissed, and disbelieved. And believe me, it's not a nice experience when you know that there's something wrong and nobody will believe what you say. And it makes it all the more worse when someone is telling people that there could be something wrong, but they too are disregarded. So if you're wondering why you should enter this competition and what the key takeaways are, it's really that you can learn so much more about an issue close to your heart that even you thought you knew about, but there's so much more to know. But personally, my biggest takeaway is that winning this competition gave me the confidence to share about my disease. There's so much stigma, and in particular cultures like my own, people regard disease as an issue and something to be hidden about. But I believe that we have to be open and share what it is. And I know that I wouldn't be where I was without the support of my family, my mum, Amina, my dad, Ahmed, and my sister, Fatima, and brother, Ali, because they always believed in me, even when I did not have the strength to believe in myself. Family and carers play such a big role in rare disease, and they have to be acknowledged. And I know that when I received my diagnosis, I lost a huge part of my personality and my confidence, and even my smile, which was replaced with a snarl. So I hope that when you learn about rare disease, you take into consideration these wider aspects and the impact it has not only on the rare disease patients, but their families and carers too. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope that you can follow on my social media and my myasthenia journey. Thank you.
Wow, Zainab, thank you. That was fantastic. Which I gave such assured performances and presentations, even now, let alone at your age. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm really pleased to say Zainab's going to stay with us and join the next part of this session, the bulk of this session, in fact. So Zainab, congratulations as well. I really enjoyed reading your essay, and I'm excited to see its reception as it gets published on Rare Disease Day. So guys, please do check out the Orphanet Journal of Rare Diseases on the February the 28th for the publication of Zainab's piece. And you'll probably be able to find some links on the Beacon website at the same time too. Right, so I'll pause, and we're now going to dive into the bulk of this session. What we know from all the different events we've run over a number of years now is the talks that everyone latches onto generally, the talks people want to hear are the talks that come from people who are living with or affected by rare conditions. They're the talks that kind of set the tone and highlight the situation we're working towards and working to improve. And so we felt it really important to make sure we had a session which was dedicated to those people. And to do that, we decided to put together a panel discussion with people living with rare diseases and working in those areas from around the world. So I'm really pleased to welcome our panel today. It's a big panel, so I've got a fun job in kind of managing it through, but we're all here to share experiences and to answer questions you have. So please, you guys out there, do put your questions across. Make my job as hard as possible to navigate the questions and get these guys asking and answering all the things you want to hear. So first on the panel is Zainab. Zainab, really pleased to have you and welcome. Next up, we have Dan Drydock Shockley. So Dan, would you like to introduce yourself, having to follow on from Zainab?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hey, greetings from across the pond. My name is Dan Drydock Shockley. I'm retired Navy, an Operation Desert Storm, Operation Enduring, and Iraqi Freedom veteran, and I am a 10-year hereditary colon cancer warrior. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show.
Dan, it's a pleasure. Really glad to have you here. Fantastic to have this panel. So next up, I'd like to introduce Vesna. Vesna, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm very happy to be part of this panel. I come from North Macedonia. I have Gaucher disease type 1. I was diagnosed when I was 7 years old, and here I am almost 37 now, and working as a patient advocate.
Vesna, it's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much. Next on the board today, we have Concy. Concy, lovely to see you. Please say hi.
Hi, my name is Concy Bwomono, and I'm from Sweden. I was diagnosed with sickle cell disease when I was 6 years old, and then during that time I was living in Uganda, but we moved to Sweden when I was 10 years old. So I've been living with the disease, and now I'm turning 50 actually this year. So they said that I was going to die when I was 20, but still I'm here. So, and together with ESCF, which stands for European Sickle Cell Federation, we are an umbrella organization in Europe where we gather all the Sickle Cell association under us. So, and I live in Sweden, and I work with another association as well here in Sweden.
Thank you so much, Concy. Really glad to have you here and excited to dive into some of your background and thoughts on this topic. Next up, we have Elizabeth. Elizabeth is joining us from Kenya. Really glad to have you here, Elizabeth. I'm glad you could rejoin. I think there's some technical issues there.
Thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth Njeri. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. I have a condition called myasthenia gravis. I was diagnosed 11 years ago, and it was laughter, like so much of me just pushing on to get a diagnosis. I am part of the Myasthenia Gravis Society of Kenya, a support group, and also I'm a board member for Rare Disorders Kenya. So I've been advocating, and the reason I advocate is because I am struggling and managing myasthenia gravis, and that has kind of pushed me towards sharing my voice. I'm excited to be here and seeing the changes that are happening every time.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Really appreciate it. I think we'll dive into your experience very soon, as you and Zainab are both living with the same condition in different parts of the world. It'll be fascinating to touch on that. Next, joining the panel, we've got David Rose, who many of you will know from his work at Rare Revolution. Hi there, David.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Rose. I've got a condition called Occipital horn syndrome. It's an incredibly rare condition with an estimated 20 people globally. I found about 6 or 7 through social media and different platforms. Really excited to be here today and to discuss all things rare disease and diagnosis, and looking forward to getting into it.
Fantastic, David. Thanks so much. Next up, Nora Leonardi is joining us from Switzerland. So Nora, I'd love to introduce yourself and background.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm in Switzerland, in Zurich, and I'm the co-founder and president of AGO2 Association. And my daughter, when she was 8 months old, she was diagnosed with an ultra-rare disorder. She was patient number 22, didn't even have a name yet. And so out of despair and lack of information, lack of any treatment, we decided to found a patient organization to find treatments, get families together, and raise awareness. So I'm happy to be here and join everyone on the panel.
Thanks, Nora. Okay, and last but by no means least, we'll be happy to be joined by Amber Freed, who's coming again from the US. So Amber, we'd like to say hi and introduce yourself. Oh, we can't hear you, Amber. I think you're muted. I'm so sorry.
Okay, is that better?
Absolutely perfect.
Well, I am so happy to be here today. My name is Amber Freed, and I lead SLC 6A1 Connect. But more importantly, I am the mother of 4-year-old twins named Maxwell and Riley. I knew nothing about children before I was actually a mother, and I did know I was in love the second I met them. Shortly after birth, I noticed that Maxwell was not developing like his twin sister Riley. So after genetic testing, Maxwell was diagnosed with a rare neurological disease named SLC 6A1. Doctors knew nothing and said nothing could be done. I left my career that day and decided to fight like a mother, and I have been fighting ever since. we are advancing multiple disease-modifying treatments. I'm so happy to share my story with you today, and I hope that you find this session helpful.
Thanks, Amber. And there's so many things we can dive into with all the panelists here, guys. So really, please do share any questions that you have that pop into your head. We're going to hopefully cover the breadth of things from the point of diagnosis to the first point anyone received any kind of care, the chance to develop treatments, the advocacy journey these people have been on, and everything in between. So all questions are very welcome. But I think we'll start where Zainab kind of left off and really introduced us beautifully to this. So Zainab, you began to mention there's something about your own diagnostic journey and the challenges you faced. And it'd be great if you could just dive into that once more, maybe in a little more detail, and so we can begin the discussion.
Yes, of course. So when I was younger, I was a really bubbly young girl. I loved doing anything that was fun, sporty, all those things. And I was really an excitable young person. So my family noticed straight away that I was suddenly less excitable, took part in less things and just didn't see myself. And the biggest thing was that my eyes would be shut by 10 a.m. in the morning, and it just wasn't me to feel tired. So we first of all went to an optician, as was told, if there were any eye problems, go to your optician. And I was very nervous, as you can expect. I was only 15 years old. I felt a bit self-conscious about what was happening to me. And when I showed one of the opticians a picture of my eye, he actually laughed. And that just really degraded me even further and stopped me going to seek any more care. But my family kept on supporting me and said, you can go see someone else. And my mum, who's a GP, was actually the person who suggested that it could be myasthenia gravis. But my own GP told me, no, she's too young. So we went to emergency services several times, and I was turned away. I was a teenager, I was young, I was just tired. I was trying to get away from school, trying to get away from class, and I was sent away many times. And then it was agreed that I would get an MRI done, and this sent my family really into hysterics because they thought there could be a brain tumour, as that was what was believed. I had eyes which were shutting early in the day, and my family didn't even know if I'd survived the night, but thank God it was all negative. And then I even had something called a lumbar puncture, which was an invasive procedure where a needle's put into your spine. And I was none the wiser to this, but my parents were really worried about what was happening to me, as were my siblings. And then after all these invasive procedures and going through all this stress, I was told I could get a simple blood test after my parents persevering if I could just get this done. And it only took 2 minutes. And after about 2 weeks, I was sitting in my room doing some French homework when I received a call from the neurologist to tell me that I had the rare condition myasthenia gravis. And as you can expect, being 15 years old, sitting in your room doing what every other teenager was doing, this was a horrible, horrible thing to hear, with nobody really there to comfort me in that one moment when I heard the words that I was diagnosed. So I really feel that people like myself, which I'm sure as Elizabeth can back up, as being a myasthenia patient, you really are disregarded, as fatigue is just seen as something of someone being lazy or someone just not putting in effort. So it's really important to just look for simple things.
Thanks, Zainab. I think there's so many things that so many in this room and watching can resonate with there. I mean, Elizabeth, I think it'd be good to bring your perspective in here just to see how your diagnosis compared to Zainab's.
Yes, like Zainab, I was also very active. I actually did sports science in campus, in university. So I was very active, climbing mountains. And then now I was struggling to even carry my handbag. I couldn't even speak without getting fatigued. My eyes were drooping. I'm like, I need to, something is happening. When I go up the stairs, I'm struggling to go up. So I knew there was something wrong. But every time I go to the doctors, they tell me, hey, there's nothing wrong with you. Your blood pressure is okay. Everything is normal. But there's something wrong because you're falling down. You're leading an aerobics class and you're falling down up, like they need to pick you up because you can't get up. So I knew there was something wrong because it can't be psychological. Like some of them told me, like maybe it's in your brain, it's in your mind, you're making it up or you're pretending or you're lazy. So I always knew there was nothing, it couldn't be that. So I pushed hard because most doctors would disregard me and say, there's nothing wrong, we can't find it, until I finally got referred to a neurologist who did a blood test. And it took me a year from the time I started feeling bad to when I was diagnosed to get a diagnosis. And it was very, very, because I broke down at the doctor's office when they told me, finally we have something that can show why your symptoms are happening the way they are. So I'm so happy to have found a diagnosis, and at least I breathed a sigh of relief, because now all my issues were not in my mind. I was not making them up. So it was very, very good. I've stopped. I kind of took a career turn from my sports because I couldn't continue with them. I wasn't as strong. I couldn't even get out of bed on my own. So I deviated from that and started my own business. So that's what I've been doing as I get to manage the condition. It has been very expensive. That's one thing I've noticed, very expensive, because we don't have, the medication is expensive, the treatment, the tests, they're all expensive. So it has been a challenge, but we're here and we are happy to be here.
Thanks, Elizabeth. We'll come back to that point around the expense and the journey you've gone on post-diagnosis to access treatment quite soon. I think, Vesna, you want to come in on this point. I think there's something resonated with you with that experience of diagnosis as well.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't easy to actually get the diagnosis in North Macedonia also. And similar as Zaina, I was, they thought I was lazy. They thought that my bruises are coming up just because I'm running a lot and I'm not careful. But after, seeing the blood test and giving me a lot of vitamins just to, raise my hemoglobin levels up, they realized that something is wrong. So they got me into a specialist in the hematology clinic, and that doctor thought it was probably leukemia or something. So they did a biopsy, the bone marrow biopsy. It was very painful. I can still remember it because I was just 7 years old. And after they did that, they saw the Gaucher cells, but unfortunately, the only research the doctor had about Gaucher disease was one sentence from a Russian book saying, it's a disease that usually Ashkenazi Jewish people have, and there is no treatment, so the child will die. So he told my parents that I will die in a year or so. It was devastating for them, and they couldn't find information like today on internet because there was no internet. So it took a lot of, letters and phone calls to finally get a book from Netherlands talking about Gaucher disease type 1, talking about inheritance, and about the symptoms, and also talking about the treatment that was not available at that time. But at least at the moment we had, the information. And my mom translated that on a typing machine and shared it with all the doctors. So other families don't get the death sentence, because of the diagnosis.
Thanks, Vesna. I mean, it's a really hard story to hear, but it's important that we can kind of see those parallels across different rare diseases. Being told that you're not going to live, your child's not going to live beyond a year is a terrifying thing to hear, especially when it's based on a lack of understanding. Concy, I'm going to kind of bring you in here. I feel that it'd be interesting to hear a bit about your diagnostic journey and how that compares to what you've heard so far.
Wow. Well, according to my mom, I got sick one day. That was during the time when I was six months old, and this was in Uganda during 1972. If any one of you remember, we had a war, Idi Amin, during that time then. So my mom took me to the hospital, and it was a missionary hospital. So after going back maybe 3 or 4 times, then they said I had sickle cell, which nobody knew about in the family. So they have heard about it, but they didn't know anything about it. So yeah, that it all started then. So yearly, I would probably just lie down outside in the sun, playing as a baby, and I'll start screaming and shouting, and yeah. So, and then they rushed me to the hospital. And during that time, there were not any medication they could give me. So they just gave me water, fluid. So, and then we had to move from Uganda. We moved to Sweden. And in Sweden, when I was 10 years old, I managed to live here for almost 2 months, and then I got sick. We came during the winter. So, and sickle cell and winter doesn't go well together. So I got rushed into the hospital, and they didn't know anything about sickle cell. So they took a lot of tests. They said that I had malaria. So I was in the hospital for almost 1.5 months. And then they said, yeah, she has sickle cell. Then they started treating me with water, and they gave me blood. So yeah, that was it.
Thanks, Concy. I mean, it's fascinating to see that kind of double impact, I suppose, of the diagnosis in Uganda, giving it there, and then the same kind of thing almost happening again in Sweden at a completely different time and stage of your life. So that's yeah, it's crazy to hear. I think on this kind of journey through diagnosis, David, it feels like you kind of slot in somewhere here. I think it was an earlier diagnosis for you, but then a later confirmation, which will lead us into some of the other stories.
Yeah, sure. So when I was about 3 years old, I was originally diagnosed with something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS as it's known. So EDS is quite an interesting condition now because it's become a lot more well-known and a lot more well-diagnosed. Certainly very different from when I was 3, kind of 28 years ago, a long time ago. And I think things have changed quite a lot since then. There's a lot more awareness, maybe not quite as rare as it was originally thought to be, just massively underdiagnosed rather than being, it's still rare, but maybe not as rare as it originally thought. So that's why I was kind of told I had. It was never really a kind of concrete, this is what you have. It's more of something to work with and to give you a kind of a rough estimate of what you might have. I was at Great Ormond Street Hospital in London, which is a really famous paediatric rare disease centre, if you're not familiar with it. It was helpful to have a bit of an idea of what was going on, or a name for it certainly, but it didn't really make too much difference. But kind of the older I got, so when I went through puberty and went into my sort of early 20s, I kind of no longer really fitted the characteristics of what somebody typically might look like with EDS. I had the kind of musculoskeletal side of things with the kind of, also with the sort of flexy skin and the collagen, which is the main kind of component of EDS, both internally and externally. But I didn't really quite fit it. And also it's not women only, but it's something like 90% women with EDS. So it's quite unusual for men to have it. It's not saying they don't have it, but it's unusual. So when I was 24, I started having genetics testing at Adam Brooks Hospital in Cambridge. And then I think it was about 3 years of testing to realise it was something called occipital horn syndrome, which is, they were very close with Ehlers-Danlos because it used to be one of the rare subtypes of EDS, but it's actually considered a milder version of something different called Menkes disease. So they weren't too far away, but yeah, there we go. So it was, that's the actual name for it, and that's kind of where we got up to now. Kind of feel very lucky. I know this is probably part of the conversation later, but I feel a lot of the diagnosis for people with rare diseases massively impacts on like a postcode lottery, and I'm just very lucky that I was brought up in Cambridge and just happened to be excellent kind of rare disease centre there, and also very close to London as well. Makes a big difference. Thanks, David.
What was that kind of point when you got that final genetic diagnosis like? Did that make much difference to you at that stage in your life? Was it something you were really waiting for, or had you kind of reconciled not knowing at that stage? I think that sort of time is quite pivotal. I don't have children, but obviously there's that kind of component of things. If you have a genetic condition, if you haven't already got children or you're thinking of starting a family, that has more of an impact. Then I think it's that having the name for it is helpful in the sense that at least you kind of know what it is. It's always been a bit of a mystery and never really quite fit into any of the groups. So it helps in terms of knowing what I have, and if I were to start a family, there is that kind of impact on there. But in terms of sort of the treatment, it hasn't really changed an awful lot. It's kind of firefighting. It's not any sort of clear, concrete evidence of that one. So. Absolutely. Thanks, David. And that kind of brings us into that realm of genetic diagnoses, right? And how that differs to some of the other stories and examples we've heard so far. So I'm going to bring Amber in now. So obviously you had that experience of an early diagnosis for your son, for your family. And I'd love to hear about that experience for you and yeah, how you've gone from it.
Well, that is exactly right. And Maxwell will probably make an appearance today because I am zooming in from Dallas, Texas. Here he comes. And we have an inch, this much of snow on the ground. And the city is shut down, including the school. What happened, our story, and part of his disease is that he constantly screams. Constantly. Like this. And it's blurry. I'll try and move him in. I had twins. So early from birth, we noticed that Maxwell wasn't advancing like his twin sister, Riley, and screaming, never slept, had all of these really strange symptoms. And one of his symptoms was that he actually stared at his finger, and I'll do it. And like, look at that. That doesn't really look like much. But if a little baby does that 12 hours a day, it becomes a problem. And similar to a lot of people in this panel, doctors didn't believe me. They told me I was a type A crazy new mother. But the problem is that's true. I am type A. I am a crazy mom. So the truth in that made me doubt myself. But what I'd like to tell everybody listening and watching is that mother's intuition is louder than a freight train. And you know when something is wrong with your children. You also know when something is wrong with yourself. And so I went from specialist to specialist and finally realized that we could just undergo genetic testing. Maxwell didn't need to have all of these super invasive lumbar puncture and 6 weeks in the hospital. Like, these stories are just so sad. He just needed, there he is. He just needed to have one blood test to obtain a diagnosis.
Thank you, Amber. Nora, obviously a similar story, I guess. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that journey and how you got to that point of diagnosis.
Thank you. Yeah, so my daughter had a very severe type of epilepsy that brought us to the hospital. And in that epilepsy can have other causes. And so in that sense, I'm really grateful to the hospital because they started a whole battery. So they did the MRI, they did a blood test to test all the metabolites, and the other one was a genetic screen. And they decided to do a whole genome screen, which is quite expensive. It's a couple of $1,000. And it's not always covered by insurance, but I'm grateful that they did that. So it was terrible to get the result back because as a parent, you just hope they don't find anything. But then also they came back with that, and we got like a sheet of paper that said your daughter has a mutation and is associated with developmental delay. And we were kind of left hanging with that, which was really tough. But it's super important. And we do have other parents who say that it took a while for them and it was hard because they saw the child doesn't meet their milestones and you're searching and you don't really know why, and you don't have a group you belong to. And it's really important that these tests are done and that you test the genome and just get clarity. And so for us, it was fast because it was linked to sort of an epilepsy, and doctors that saw the importance of this.
Absolutely. And you said you kind of got that diagnosis, that bit of paper, and were kind of left hanging. I mean, how long was that, and what was that moment of delivery? Because obviously Zainab's mentioned the delivery of the diagnosis has been something that was really hard. And you know, when you're in that world of genetic diagnosis, you hope there's some process of genetic counselling if that's involved. But I don't know if that was your experience and how that worked for you.
So for us, they found the mutation before the first paper was published. And so they said it's all under embargo, which I found terrible. Yeah. I would have thought there should have been like an NDA or anything you can sign as a parent that the doctor can tell you. But so we had to wait for the paper to be published. So that was about 2 months. And then there was genetic counseling, and they basically had the paper on the table and they said, look, this is a list of symptoms. Which ones does your child have? And oh, her ears are a little bit shifted. So it felt like we were a specimen and not good. And also it's only when we really started to reach out and talk to more people, and then people were telling us more as well about the huge variability you have in genetic diseases. And I think that's also a crucial point for parents to know, that it's not, there's a lot of unknowns, and the gene is one thing, and then there's many ways how it can turn out.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nora. I mean, does anything in that diagnosis point resonate with you, Amber, or the moment when you heard what that was? Was it handled better in your case, or was it similar, lack of care and packaging around that information?
I had a very similar experience. So for us, we sat in that diagnostic room and they said, your son has SLC6A1. And I said, what's the name of the disease? And they said SLC6A1. And I said, that's a flight number. Did somebody discover it? Like, who wants credit for this disease? And they said, nobody does. It's a rare disease. Rare diseases are too rare to care. Doctors will only see a couple of you in their career, so they're certainly not going to dedicate themselves to your son. These diseases typically aren't profitable, so there won't be any biotech interest. And it doesn't affect enough people to interest government funding, so you're mostly on your own. I received a 5-page article written in Denmark, and I just looked at this article that was super scientific, and I didn't understand what it meant. And I said, well, where do I go next? And I felt like the doctors really didn't have any idea, which was and is a blessing and a curse. I knew that if anything was going to change, I was going to have to do it myself. And I've been able to dedicate my life to this disease.
Thanks, Amber. And I mean, it's really hard to hear the similarities and parallels between everyone, despite the different points of diagnosis, the different routes of diagnosis. There's still that real sense of isolation, obviously, that's tied to it, and a lack of point of support. And we'll definitely come back to that journey you've then gone on to try and deliver change, both yourself and Nora in setting up and working through advocacy groups. Dan, I'm kind of coming to you last, and I feel mean, obviously, to follow this wealth of stories, but I'm sure you're up to it. It'd be great to hear about your diagnostic journey, which feels very different to me from what you said earlier, but also almost by chance that you got there. So I'd love to share that story.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I was residing in Hawaii at the time of my diagnosis. I had undergone my first and only colonoscopy. I was 51 years old, so that was 10 years ago this May. And leading up to the colonoscopy is a routine check. I mean, I knew when I turned 50. I've known this for many years. When you turn 50, schedule a colonoscopy. I had no family history, no symptoms, so that was the plan. The plan of attack. So when I woke up from the colonoscopy, my GI doctor was standing there by my bed in the recovery room with a lot of photographs he had taken. And he said, Dan, we're going to need to talk. And I said, okay, what's going on? And I'm sipping on some guava juice and eating some animal crackers because I'm hungry and thirsty. And he says, well, I found 100 polyps embedded throughout your colon, rectum, and anus. And I think you have a hereditary colon cancer syndrome known as FAP. That's the acronym. And that impacts less than 1% of the global population. And he said, but what I want to do is I want to refer you over to the Tripler Army Medical Center, which is in Hawaii, to see their certified genetic counselor. And then we do germline DNA tests. So I sat down the next week. I sat down with my counselor and had a discussion with her, and she wanted to do the DNA test to rule out FAP. And she mentioned that the lab that facilitates the test is in Pasadena, California. It's going to take about 3 weeks to get the results back. And I said, okay. And so I said, well, what in the meantime can I read about FAP? So she gave me some resources and very limited information about it. Yeah. But I'm retired military, so I automatically went into my battle mode, as we call it, or as I call it. And then I broke it down into 3 phases. I broke down that I needed to learn about FAP, which is what they thought that I had. I needed to learn about the type of surgery, which is an invasive colon surgery. And then life after surgery, having a permanent ostomy, because I would have no longer have a colon, rectum, and anus. So I'm reading as much literature as I could. Now, in the meantime, I had 2 full-time jobs, so I'm burning midnight oil. And so 6 weeks goes by. But in the meantime, I'm talking to medical professionals. Their trip were in the VA Medical Center in Hawaii. And 6 weeks later, I get a phone call that I need to go see my certified genetic counselor and my colorectal surgeon. They need to talk to me. So we sat down and I said, well, Dan, you have a hereditary colon cancer syndrome. You have attenuated FAP. And I said, okay, well, what's this mean? He goes, well, it's in the best practice of medicine to have your colon, rectum, and anus removed. You have a permanent ileostomy. And I said, well, okay, I've been reading about this. I don't know anything about attenuated FAP. And I said, well, that impacts estimated less than 0.03% of the global population. And that mutation was discovered by Dr. Henry T. Lynch. And Dr. Henry T. Lynch is the founding father of hereditary cancer research. He, at the time, was a director of preventive medicine at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. Well, my genetic counselor and colorectal surgeon were colleagues of Dr. Lynch. So little did I know that he was tracking my journey from the onset. And during this discussion, my surgeon explained to me, said, you need the surgery. You don't have to have it, but you need it because any of the 100 polyps left unattended have a 100% chance of developing a colon cancer. And I said, well, I'm ready. Let's do the surgery. He goes, Dan, I thought that's what you'd say. I've already scheduled your surgery. It's 2 weeks from today. So wow. 6-hour surgery, had my colon, rectum, and anus totally removed. I have a permanent ileostomy. And now I start my life being an ostomate with a hereditary colon cancer syndrome. So I've been blessed to have a great medical team there in Hawaii. And 7 months after my surgery, guess who shows up in Hawaii to do an academic lecture? Dr. Lynch. So in fact, there's a photograph of Dr. Lynch and I in the background behind me. We sat down for an hour and 50 minutes, and he went on to say that I have a unique case of AFAP, and we stayed in touch through the years. He was 86 and a half years old when he came to Hawaii, and at 91 and a half years old, June 2nd of 2019, he passed away. He was still going and doing his research up until a month before he passed away. So my life, I want to continue his legacy by educating the world about attenuated FAP. And that is on the importance of early detection in hopes of saving lives. So I've had the opportunity to be a live case presentation for the University of Michigan, genetic hereditary testing. I'm actually part of their advisory board. I'm a live case presentation for the University of Texas Health Center in San Antonio, Texas, for the Genetics in GI Malignancy Multidisciplinary Conference. And that's an annual event. We do them virtually, of course, now. And I'm just looking to share my journey on the importance, like I said, of early detection. I don't know anybody has attenuated FAP. I've heard about, a lot of medical professionals that have read about it in their studies and have seen different peer-reviewed publications. Now, let me mention, a year ago, I underwent surgery that was directly related to my mutation because we had to spare my pancreas from the mutation from reaching it. So I was accepted at Stanford University Hospital, and I had a surgery called pancreas sparing duodenectomy resection. That's actually the short version of it. It's what the old school would be called the Whipple procedure. This is newer technology from the late 1990s, early 2000s. So I was assigned to one of the nation's leading pancreatic cancer surgeons at Stanford University, and I went through that surgery and have no symptoms, no side effects, no medication. I go about my life as if nothing happened, and it's an honor to be on this platform among many other platforms that I'm an advocate for, not just ostomy, hereditary colon, rare disease, and mental health awareness. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, thanks, Dan. And I think it's really interesting to hear that different story, and the pace at which it moved for you is it's amazing, actually, and to be, you know, accelerated into treatment that quickly and surgery that quickly is you know, it's great for you in the situation you found yourself in, although it must have been, you know, challenging at the time to cope with. And we'll probably come back towards this idea of mental health and coping with that point of diagnosis and care later. One thing you touched on there, which is a question that's come through, was also the importance of that relationship, I suppose, with the researchers and doctors. And a question came through earlier for Zainab about how your personal experience as a patient has approached your approach to your med school studies and how you want to practice as a doctor in the future. And I think that's just be interesting to touch on that now as like a gateway into this discussion around treatment and care that different people receive.
Yeah, of course. So as a young person, I was always interested in science. I loved biology and chemistry. But when I received this diagnosis, it really opened my eyes up to really the experiences of rare disease patients and the way I was treated and the way my family were treated and the way I saw everything unfolding really made me understand that there wasn't enough being done for rare disease. Yeah, maybe there were tick box exercises like in medical curriculums, like tell them it exists, but there wasn't enough real action being done on really supporting people with rare diseases. So a lot of the time when I was going through my application to medical school, I'm sure many people know it's really strenuous, really competitive. And we even asked my consultant, do you think I'll be able to do it? Because I'm so passionate. It's what I really want to do, but I was always questioning myself, will I be able to keep up with other people? And I think a big thing was, again, going back to family support, because even now I still doubt myself. I'm thinking I'm lagging behind. I get tired. I still get tired. My MG still has its effects. It may be better controlled than it was, but I never forget that I have it, because at the end of the day, I'll be shattered before anybody else feels even a hint of tiredness. And even though it still has its impacts, I think that really makes me unique and special, if I can say that, as my family always tell me. But it's really given me that insight that I hope when I'm a medical practitioner, I'll be able to treat people with not just respect, but really belief, because as everybody was saying, it's that really being pushed to the side, being pushed to the periphery. And as Philippa was saying, you're always told, like, listen for horses, not zebras when you hear this. But really, it's important to really think of those 1%, those 1 in 1,000, or for me, 15 in 100,000, because even though we're labeled as figures, we are all people, and we all have families who have to deal with that. And as Nora and Amber were saying, as mothers, it's really difficult, and parents and siblings and just everybody in the family is impacted, so not just the rare disease patient. And I hope that when I'm a medical practitioner in the future, that I'll be able to show people respect that I wish I'd received at the start of my journey.
Thanks, Zainab, but I'm sure you will. It's great to hear, and that's really what the essay is about and what the medical rare diseases are about. So it's great to you talking about that. Thank you for sharing it. I want to kind of touch on a bit on that kind of first source of help or support that any of you found. I mean, for some people it will have been like Dan, you know, the clinician sweeping in with a plan of suggestion. I suspect that might have been rarer in a lot of cases there. For others, it might have been another family, a patient group. I mean, where was that first point where you felt like someone else understood what was going on with you, and how did that help you? And anyone want to take the first run at this? Go on, Vesna.
Yeah, I love to talk about Gaucher disease and everything I went through. It's never easy. The thing is, in North Macedonia, there was no support, you know, no doctor specialist, no or rare disease organization. Like, no one is interested in that. Like, no one knows anything. So I was actually living my life as I was a normal person, although I wasn't. You know, you go out with your friends and then you're 3 days in bed because you're too tired and too exhausted because you went one night out. That's it. But in my 20s, when my ribs started to break because somebody hugged me too tight, this was the moment when I said, Vesna, you need to ask for help. You have to start fighting this. You have the disease, accept it and do something about it. So I was very depressed and, you know, devastated. It was not a nice time for me. especially, being in my 20s, being in college and everything. So I wrote a letter to the International Gaucher Alliance. I still keep it. It's very heartbreaking. And I tell them that I don't want to live my life anymore like this, and I need their help to get me treatment and to help me out in my country, because my country is not helping me. So I got a donation in 2010. This was my first treatment, and it was amazing. I still remember how cold it was, the infusion in my arms. And I couldn't believe it. My mom called me like 5 times during the infusion just to ask, are you really receiving it? Are you really taking the medicine? Is this happening for real? So now you're going to be a normal person. And I'm like, Mom, I'm normal, but it will make me better. That's it, And my mom told me that this disease happened to me because I'm smart enough and young enough and strong enough to actually do something about it and fight, So I founded the organization Life with Challenges in North Macedonia. We started like 5 people together with Gaucher disease. We didn't even know each other. We just we have the same disease, so we have to socialize, that's it. So that became my other family. And today we are like 500 people in the association, and 150 different rare diseases, joined together, fighting together, doing something together as a community. And also, I have to mention that the support from the International Gaucher Alliance was, amazing. They even, I remember Tanya came for a press conference, and Timothy Cox also came for a press conference. So they fly away from UK to North Macedonia to speak to our government and to our doctors, telling them they have to treat us, that rare diseases have to be treated, that we can be normal people with normal lives. And that's the truth. Because of the treatment, because of these amazing people I've met with the associations, because of this rare disease family, today I have a husband, a daughter, a master's degree, a job, friends, everything I want to.
Thanks, Vesna. It's an amazing story, and it's great to hear the kind of the honesty in which you share the other parts of it, particularly as well. I mean, it really helps everyone to hear those stories and that honesty. So thank you for that. David, I'm interested to come to you. There's quite a contrast there, I suppose, because for you there obviously isn't any kind of treatment out there, and wondered, what has been that point of support for you? Has there been a point where you felt there's been a real change?
Yeah, I'll try and condense my answer. I think it's probably in a couple of ways. So obviously I had the first diagnosis when I was 3, and then the kind of formal one when I was 27. I think the difference maybe is when you're in pediatric care, your mum and dad do most of the things for you, and you're is almost on a plate for you, and all the kind of clinicians and hospital staff kind of do a lot of the work for you. And then when you're an adult, you're very much left to your own devices. So I think I have found it a bit harder as an adult. And I think because there's not this kind of patient community as such out there, there's no patient, I found a few individuals, but there's no sort of real patient community as such, no patient group, that kind of sort of infrastructure. I've been very lucky that kind of over the years I've had some really supportive hospital staff. There might not be specialists in occipital horn syndrome by any means, but for the different kind of departments that I've seen over the years, they've all been really kind of fighting my corner and trying to push for their own individual specialisms in a way to try and help me. Again, kind of what Vesna was saying, I live a relatively normal life as well. I've got friends, family, partner, live with my partner, and live a kind of normal life. And I think that's really important, is that just because you have one or multiple rare diseases, I think we should still have the same chances to sort of thrive as everybody else.
Absolutely. And that, we talked earlier in the event about everyone having different labels, and you're not just one single thing. There's so many different labels any of us can take to define ourselves and how we think about ourselves, and that shouldn't be just in one experience or one condition. Thanks, David. So just to let you know, Amber really had to drop out. Fortunately, there's some problems back home, just keeping an eye on the kids and that. But we obviously want to thank Amber for joining and sharing the story that she did. I think it was brilliant, and she had a lot to it. Concy, can I come back to you again? I'd be really interested to see, we kind of, you took us through that early journey, the diagnosis in Uganda, moving on to Sweden, and what was the point for you where you kind of began to feel there were people there that were supporting or connecting with your condition and your story?
When I was younger, I was asking the doctors in the hospital if there were any support group here in Sweden. But the only answer they gave me was like, you can try to connect with UK or America. They have the information, but here in Sweden we didn't have anything. So, and I have a family as well. I have a son and a daughter. So when I got my daughter, unfortunately, I should say, because people think that way, but for me, I don't feel it that way. So she also has sickle cell. And that was 2013. So 2015, I formed an association group here. I just felt like enough is enough, because we are here, but people are not looking at us. They are not seeing us. Nobody's taking us serious, or at least me, because I've been asking the question, but nobody has been listening. So, and going through the pain, the fatigue, the loneliness, I just felt that there are probably other people who has this condition, and they're feeling the same thing that I'm feeling here in Sweden. So yeah, together with my doctor, he advised me to write a letter, and they'll divide it out to the patient in the hospital, which they did. And then we met up with thalassemia patients as well, because they don't have any association here as well. So we have the association that I formed is called KBS, chronic blood disease. And so we have been going on from 2016 until now, but we have a lot of stigma within the community. So people don't want to come out and talk about it. And a lot of parents actually became very surprised when I met them for the first time in a hospital. The hospital had a meeting for parents. So I took my time and went there. But in the beginning, I didn't want to go there because I was already in the grown-ups group. So I felt like, no, it's better to just stay there. So I went there and met up with the parents, and they were really surprised that I had the disease and my daughter has it as well. So basically, that's it. I feel like for me, I don't have a problem saying I have my disease or condition. Because I realized when I was around, say, 25, then I started to realize this is, as long as I live, I need to talk about it so that people around me, if something happens to me, so that they will understand that they also have to jump in and help me in any, but it takes time. It takes time. It's different for everyone. So some of the members in the group, they're saying I'm strong, but I don't see myself as strong. I see myself as I don't have to hide it. People can't see my disease, so I need to talk about it. I need to, especially when it comes to the hospital, I need to go there. I need to meet up with the doctors. I need to meet up with a lot of people so that they will understand that we have a problem going on in this country and we need to deal with it. Not only in this country, all over the world. So if I could, what I always say is, if I could walk around and say on my forehead, I have sickle cell disease, and people will understand that, yeah, that's great, but I don't feel like I need to do that. But the education has to come from the people who are studying to become doctors. They need to know about this disease. If you're going to treat me, you should know that eventually I'll come to the hospital screaming, shouting, and you'll don't know what to do. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Vesna, you were nodding away there. Do you want to come in at all?
I mean, her story is wonderful, and I love that she's saying, everybody should know about it, and we should speak about it, because as long as you are quiet and not talking about the disease, you'll get nothing. I mean, that happened in North Macedonia. People were quiet, and when I started talking, a lot of people started to calling me because I got my phone out in the media. So that was not an easy thing to do, because then I got like so many people, so many parents with like phenylketonuria and hereditary angioedema and myasthenia gravis and sickle cell and many other diseases, and I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because we just started this. I have no idea what to do. But, when we started to cooperate regionally with other rare disease organizations, and when people got encouraged to talk loud about that, we were everywhere, speaking to institutions, to journalists, and we were not just complaining, we were actually offering solutions. You don't have money for rare diseases, let's find money for rare diseases. So they actually accepted one of our propositions, taking money from cigarettes and alcohol. So now we have that money to buy drugs for rare diseases. So speak up and never stop, never stop fighting. We have to be persistent and very stubborn.
I agree with that completely. We have to keep fighting, especially as myasthenia gravis is an invisible illness. So people might not even notice you're sick unless you talk about it. When you're seated like this, you'll just see, I'm normal. I have all my hands together. I have like my feet. But when I start moving, that's when you'll notice there's a problem. So I learned how to speak, and through that, I found other people who are also speaking about it, and then we come together and form association just to talk about what we are going through, encourage each other, find ways to improve. Yes.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I was going to come to you there. Zainab, did you want to add to it?
Yeah, I was going to just echo what Elizabeth was saying about when conditions are hidden conditions, people really disregard them. And even a simple example of, because as Elizabeth was saying, you get tired from standing or tired from walking around. I once sat on one of the priority seats on the bus, and I got so many looks of disgust from people nearby. Why is this young person taking a seat from, and there was nobody else who needed it around, but it was just that kind of, I'm wasting a space. And I think really there has to be more awareness of the importance of hidden conditions, because just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not impacting that person. And just because you can't see the impacts it's having on their mental health or on their physical health doesn't mean that it's impacting them in ways that you don't know or you will never know. So I really feel strongly about what Concy was saying, that everybody takes different times to share about their condition. And I was really, for a long time, not because I was ashamed and not because I'd care what people think, because I never really cared. It was only important what I thought and how I felt about myself. But it's the way that people would treat you, because it was so much more obvious, that change. The minute they know there's something, they would be condescending or asking more. And you don't always want, of course you want people to ask how you are, but that minute you get singled out for having a condition or being different, it's not a nice feeling. And you do want to be able to do what everyone does, but just for them to acknowledge that sometimes you may need a little more help, but not to put you in, as you were saying, label you and chuck you in a different box from everyone else.
Thanks, Zainab. I think that's really excellent addition and a powerful point, and something we just need to see far more of, really, that awareness of the hidden condition and how it can impact people. Yeah, David, go on.
Just to kind of follow on a little bit from what Zainab said, I think actually it can obviously completely resonate with the priority seating or using a blue badge for the car in the UK. Also, it's a very similar kind of concept of just because someone's young or youngish in my case, why using it? I've heard that quite a lot, kind of in the sort of rare disease and broadly kind of chronic illness and just health space in general. And I think just as a sort of separate note, I think actually, especially over the last couple of years, but also in general, just kind of now everything is so digital, and social media has actually really helped advocacy in many ways for hidden conditions, because previous to, when I was 14, like social media wasn't really even a thing. So now actually, like, especially for the kind of younger generation that are now in their teens and maybe starting to want to talk about their health, for people when they go into their 20s, they'll be better equipped than probably what we were, because they've been brought up in that generation where even things like TikTok and stuff has been really good for, I'm a bit too old for that, but you know, the rare disease, apparently there's a really big rare disease community on TikTok, and especially kind of on Instagram, and then obviously kind of in a more corporate way on LinkedIn. All of the channels have been really useful, I think, for raising awareness of hidden and or rare conditions.
Thanks, Dave. You're younger than me, man. You're making me feel old here. This is there's a comment in the chat which I thought was really interesting, and it was timed just after we kind of stopped talking about those diagnostic journeys, and someone mentioned that moving stories, and they said its true location doesn't really matter, and I thought that's quite interesting, because I think from the diagnosis stories we talked about, that feels like exactly the right response. But then as we're beginning to move through this, we're starting to see some subtle differences in the situation in the countries you're all in, the locations you're in, that have affected your experience of accessing some form of support, some form of care or treatment. I just wondered if anyone wanted to comment on how you feel where you are in the world has impacted your journey, either positively or negatively. Vesna, I know you've kind of hinted at some of this before, but I'd love to just open the floor for that point.
Yeah. So, I remember that when I was younger, like 5 years old, my parents wanted to move to Canada. They were invited there because they were, engineers, building stuff, and they were important for Canada. But they didn't move because, they loved their house and, building their family in North Macedonia. But when we got the news about the disease, then they started thinking about moving, because in other countries, this disease was treated. So the treatment was accessible in Europe. It was accessible in USA, in Canada, but it was not for North Macedonia. And today it's not accessible yet for many countries. So there is still, there is still lack of access to treatment, even after the UN resolution that was just adopted, for access to care and treatment and diagnosis, for everyone to be equal, to have equity. There is no equity at the moment, and it can't be. There are poor countries and rich countries, and the health systems are different. So it always depends on where you live, how your life would turn out to be. I'm not feeling sorry for myself because of that. I'm actually happy that it happened that way, because this way I had to fight, and I'm a different person because of it. And I met a lot of people because of it, and I'm here in this panel because of it, and a lot of friends left me, but I got a lot of new friends who supported me. And I have a husband who was there with me for my first infusion. I actually told him, okay, before we start serious, you need to see how my life would be. I will be taking infusions. And he charmed all the nurses in the hospital. They are still looking for him. I'm not sending him there anymore, no way. We are trying to make life better. And quality of life has changed in North Macedonia because of we were fighting. So in 6 years' time, we managed to get a commission for rare diseases, a registry for rare diseases, a program with a budget for rare diseases, and suddenly from 2 patients who were treated, we got 150 patients who were treated. And today that number is going higher and higher. And I'm happy that, all these families have future now. So I'm thinking, let's do that internationally, let's build futures.
Absolutely, and congratulations on the work, what you have achieved there already, Vesna. But I think it's a really important point. There is difference everywhere, but all you can do is work where you are and try and improve and change things. Elizabeth, obviously you're involved with Rare Disorders Kenya as well. I'd just be fascinated to see your perspective on this and what you guys are trying to achieve in Kenya for patients with myasthenia gravis and other rare disorders.
Yes, so what we try is to create awareness that yes, we are here, we exist. Rare diseases are they're affecting lives, and also to support mentally, emotionally, just to be there for other patients who are going through something and they're really confused. There's some who don't even have support groups like myasthenia gravis. We have a huge number in Kenya, so we can talk to each other and share experiences and what to do, what not to do. When there's heat, you need to rest. We're telling each other, like, how do you shower? But if you're just the only one, there's no one else you can talk to. But we need to make you feel included, that yes, you can, if you feel like you want to vent, just vent. We can understand. Maybe we don't understand exactly what you're going through, but we can empathize with your condition, with what you're going through day to day, and also to implement policy with the government so that they can make certain drugs accessible to us. Just the other day, they passed a new drug of myasthenia gravis, but we're still behind in the treatment. I just got the thymectomy done last year, and it's been available in the United States for years. We're just getting like certain things available now to us. Expensive, yes, but at least now they're coming in. But we need more to be done. We need them to be even accessible to us in terms of affordability and all. So we are really pushing forward, especially for policy. And with the UN with the UN policy, we are hoping they'll be better. We'll get an ear, someone to listen to our pleas and our cries. Yes.
Thanks, Elizabeth. It's a brilliant summary of what you're trying to achieve. And you know, for those that saw the panel in the event about the work that's been done in Africa, it was fantastic to hear the work that's been going on there, and credit to you guys for pushing that. Dan, just wanted to come to you at this point. I wonder what experience or knowledge you have about the different experience people may have with your condition or rare cancers around the world, and if in some of the advocacy work you've done, you've encountered different stories that may mirror or contrast to what you're doing. And I'm asking this completely naively, and we'll take any answer.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, there's not a lot of information out there. There's not a lot of individuals that I know that are familiar with it. The few that I am collaborating with, we share our resources, and you know, I was connected with your team and David over there at Rare Revolution for the last several years. You know, the Shockleys, our ancestry, you come from the UK. My mom's a Wilson from the Highlands up there in Scotland. So I don't have a family tree, and you know, so I'm just reaching out to anybody I can, so between your organization and David over there with Rare Revolution, it's amazing, and I'm just hoping that someday in the near future, I'll have some opportunity to communicate with some of the, you know, my relatives, distant relatives over there in the UK. But in the meantime, you know, I reach out in as many organizations internationally to share my journey, and like I said, it's in hopes of educating the world about attenuated FAP and to continue Dr. Lynch's legacy.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that, and I think you're doing a great job doing that, getting your message out there. You know, all power to you for that. I just want to come back to Nora then. So we haven't kind of come back to you with this question that we started this little section on, about that first point or first place where you felt some kind of understanding or change or support in what you're doing. And I'd be fascinated to see where you feel you are currently in that journey that you're going through with AGO2.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the first and foremost was probably just my family. So especially for the epilepsy and for the treatment, that was a really tough time. And our daughter didn't sleep anymore. She cried all the time, and my family was really crucial. My dad, my mom, my husband's family, they just really helped us through this, and they still help us. They still help me to have time to dedicate to this cause. So that's like on the really personal level. And then I think what's also interesting about rare disease, once you have one, people pop up everywhere. Like sort of like, I know someone, I have a relative, I actually know someone, and then you get connected, and that was a key thing. So it was not the same rare disease, but people who told me, go and have a look at this site, register with this group. So that was more, I think, broadly, that was helpful. And then I have a PhD in biomedical engineering. I actually studied gene therapy. It's kind of ironic, but so also I started emailing the researchers. I started to ask them, what do you know? Can you help us? What can we do? And then via that also came the contact with other patients. And that was also, I mean, we are very small, so it's difficult to find someone who's really going through the same thing as you, but it's still helpful. But I think there's a little bit two sides, maybe also to what Zainab said. There's, if it's hidden, maybe people, they don't understand what you're going through. If it's out there, you also have some people react to it. And what's also helpful is to have normalcy in your life. So also just not forgetting what actually helps you, what gives you energy, and being in my normal job and doing sports and being outside. And that's also really key to go through this.
Thanks, Nora. And I think it's nice to touch then on some of the themes we want to just bring in towards this later stage of discussion, which is that element of personal well-being, mental health, and how you kind of manage that situation you found yourself in at different times. You know, it's about finding space for you as a parent, as carer, as a leader of a patient group, or as an individual affected by a rare condition yourself, which is always challenging. David, do you want to just touch on some of your thoughts on that? Because I think it'd be interesting to explore the situation we're in where, you know, like you said, you've maybe found 6 or so other people with your condition through social media in the world. And that is a definition of ultra rare and must be isolating at times.
Yeah, it is very isolating. I think that probably like a lot of men, I think I try and pretend mental health doesn't exist, and I'm very guilty of that. Men in general, I think I can say, are normally pretty bad at talking about health. You only really have to look on like social media, you'll see it's dominated by women speaking rather than men as well, which is a shame. But hopefully more men will start to do that, both with physical and mental health as well. I think that's quite an important part of it. I think having my condition itself has been quite isolating, I think in lots of different ways. Where I think you know, when I was at university, I was studying something completely different. I didn't really plan to kind of end up working in rare disease. I didn't really foresee that being a thing, and obviously I was quite disheartened when what I really wanted to do originally when I was at university, when I couldn't do that and I couldn't keep up with my peers. I think that's probably when I really noticed that I was different. I think, you know, because I went to a mainstream school and played sports and did all the kind of usual things, albeit maybe adapting it slightly, but I kind of did all the same things my peers did. And then as I got older and maybe my body started to change more and evolve slightly, especially with the fatigue, I think Zainab brought that up earlier. I think the fatigue has been arguably the most isolating part of it, because with pain, and I'm going to slightly off topic, but bear with me, I think with the pain aspect, there are sort of, you know, painkillers and you can take, but there's actually nothing really to combat fatigue. Like fatigue is incredibly different to tiredness. And I think the fatigue part is probably the most isolating part in many ways for rare diseases, because it's really debilitating and there isn't really a quick fix for it. But going back to the kind of the other part of the isolation of not really having community, I can't remember, I think it was Vesna that was talking about it, saying that, it might have been Nora actually, sorry, you know, I don't have a big community of people with my condition, but through my work and my volunteer sort of activities and through all the kind of social media interactions I've had with people with all different kinds of conditions, I've made, you know, another family of friends. And I'm, you know, very, you know, nobody really wants to be born with a rare disease, but I feel like it has given me like a different kind of purpose, and it's inspired me to do things and to connect people and hopefully try and help some others along the way.
Thanks, David. I think you put that brilliantly in, and yeah, you've made a lot of contacts in the last few years, spoke to a lot of people and made a difference by doing that, which is fantastic. But it's good that you can talk about that kind of mental health side of it as well. Zainab, Elizabeth, you're both kind of nodding along. David was talking about fatigue, and I mean, I don't know if you guys want to come in on that.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to say about the fatigue and the isolation. You find yourself cancelling plans if you had with your friends. You're constantly cancelling the plans until the point that they don't invite you anymore, because it's like you don't show up for the plans. So it kind of messes up with your mental health, and you like need to remind yourself, it's not because I'm canceling because I don't want to be with them, but it's because I'm fighting. Like if I woke up very weak today, I can't make it. And when you try to explain it over and over, it might feel like, that's the excuse you always come up with. So it kind of it's very exhausting.
Yeah, agree.
Zainab?
I just echo what they were both saying, because like they were mentioning, you can't get involved with what everybody else around you is doing, and you want to go out, and even if you do go out, you have to leave early, and people might think, oh, why are they leaving early? They just want to get away, or they don't want to stay out later. Simple things like that. And I even remember at my school, everyone was taking part in a charity run, and it was at the time where I still didn't feel very confident sharing about my diagnosis, and I just had to shy away from those conversations, and it does really detach you from other people, and it does impact your mental health. And I think often when you do have a physical condition or a diagnosis which is something to do with your body going wrong, people often think that's the only thing and it's compartmentalized, but it all ties in with, you know, the mental health, the really isolating aspects of it. Even like Elizabeth was saying, I think the contrasts and around the world that we have they're too vast, and they need to be fixed, because I think we're so fortunate here in the UK, and especially in Scotland, we have access to all these amazing treatments, and it just follows this plan that no matter who you are, what religion you are, you have access to the same treatments. And I was lucky enough, I had a treatment called Rituximab, and even though it didn't work for me, it's thousands of pounds, but my consultant didn't hesitate to explain that since I was not responding to other treatments, this could be offered. And I really think it's really unfair that people around the world don't have the same opportunities, and we create these false divisions in our society of where you live or what religion you are, when really we're all just humans, and we all just want to be treated equally. So I think we should all have access, regardless of colour of skin, religion, anything, because it's not fair that people have access to better treatment than others when we're all having the same disease.
Thanks, Zainab. I think you put that beautifully, and I couldn't put it better myself if I wanted to. Concy, can I bring you in kind of on where Zainab's taken us there, really? Because I mean, it's well known that there are lots of issues around health equality in the sickle cell world, and I don't know if there's something you'd like to kind of mention or discuss as part of this forum, and I kind of leave it open to you to dive into that however you wish to.
I have to start by saying thank you, Zainab, for saying all that, because that is still today, as I said, I'm turning 50 this year, and still today, I can't understand why people are still, as human beings, we can't see each other as we're equal. And when it comes to the sickle cell society, we have this, because most people think that the sickle cell is just a black man disease, which is not. It's affect everyone around the world. It doesn't matter of the skin color or religion or where you're from. So, but the treatment is also the same there. It's still, we have the inequality. Not a lot of people get it. Some they get it. And it's frustrating. It's, for me, it's really frustrating, because when you get, the older you get, the less treatment you'll be able to get, because you'll have so many complications in your body, so that the treatment that they're out there, you won't be able to get it because because of the complication that you already had in a younger age. And if you get treatment and it doesn't work, they'll try something else. And unfortunately, we don't have that many treatment. This sickle cell has been known for over 112 years, but still we have like a few good treatment, and it's connected with cancer treatment. So I'm sorry, I just get so angry, because I know that they have, I mean, we could have done more, or more can be done, but in the end, it's all about money. Where can we put the resources, and where are people capable to pay for them? And so it's really sad. I can only say it's sad. It's really, really sad. So
Absolutely, and thanks for bringing some of that out, Concy. I really want to make sure we touched on that point. With terms of treatment and treatment development, you know, are there things that you guys are working at the European Sickle Cell Foundation? Are there hopes or things that you're driving for, particularly in that area, that you want to bring forward or talk about?
The foundation just started 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we are working hard with awareness, and also connecting other sickle cell association in Europe. And in the future, at least what I'm as a group, we would like to work globally so that so that everyone who needs treatment can get treatment. So.
And yeah, it's a fantastic mission. And obviously been doing a presentation with David prior to this session, and David spoke at a prior one about some of the work you've been doing around apps to connect patients together and access the data. So I think it's great work, and thanks for mentioning it. And that kind of just touches on this point we've already brought out really well through the panel, but everyone here isn't just talking about their personal experience of a condition. Everyone is talking about the work they're trying to do as advocates to make a difference there and change it. And that's clearly something that everyone here is really passionate about to push forward for those changes. So it'd be good just to touch on what your kind of thoughts are for that future, what you'd like to see in your disease area or in the work you want to do next to see a change there. So anyone want to take that on and give us an insight into what you'd like to see happening in your area in the future?
I think I can take that on. In the future, I'd want us to not take long before we get a diagnosis, and maybe, easy accessibility to treatment, medication, tests, easily accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks, Elizabeth. Nora, I saw your hand pop up and I was hoping to bring you in here as well.
Definitely, yeah. We're definitely, for us, it's multiple. I think two main pieces. One is the area of what is out there that's not specific to our disease, but that can help our children. And that's key, where we want to interact with other families, just so that we can enable our parents to go out and explore what can they do about speech, what can they do about epilepsy, and what's there right now. And then the other area is really to go forward on potential novel treatments. And we're really grateful that we can collaborate with the scientists who discovered the disease. And we're looking forward to organize a conference together this year. And we're also working together with AGO1 because we're so rare, but it's very similar. So I guess we're trying to collaborate and go together, and we're hoping to kind of push the boundaries. And you are being told a lot, pharma won't care, you're too rare, but then others tell you, things are changing. There may be changes coming that make it cheaper. Try and get your, something proof of concept and take things forward, get the basis there, understand your community, talk about it. So that's where we want to go. And then, of course, for us, diagnosis is important, so that we identify patients that are out there and that we can connect.
You're right at the start of that journey as a group, Nora, right?
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
found it really early, and I guess it must feel like there's 101 things you want to hit and things you want to go to. How are you trying to have that focus on the thing you want to do next, and what is it that's kind of, I don't know, helping make that easier, or taking some of the daunting side of it away, if it is at all?
I guess it's still daunting, but it does. Just I guess talking to people, and as other people have said, there are other people out there, and a lot of people are willing to help. So it takes some time to get connected, but then, of course, I have the scientists to ping ideas off and ask them, do you think that's something we should pursue? Then there are alliances like umbrella groups for rare diseases, other parents, and there's a lot of things to do, but I guess for us, it's just thinking about how we can get the patients together. I guess going back to our mission and then thinking, what do we think can have the biggest impact? And that's about, getting the patients together. And for us, that's, for example, getting a conference to advance on science, knowing where research is important for our families as well, to just know that someone is working on your disease and not feel like you're all on your own.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Nora. Vesna, any thoughts on what's next? You feel like you've done so much for your journey already. What's next on the plate?
Oh, there is always more to do. That's what I learned in rare diseases. So at this point in North Macedonia, what are we lacking is the part of social services and the management of the disease and the delivery of treatment, because it's all centralized and everything. So you have to travel and I hate that. So we need to change things step by step. I really do want to believe in a world in the future that will be about equity and about equality, and that everyone will be having access to treatment and management, and everything, because otherwise it's frustrating and it's not a way to live. It's not okay. I'm really hoping about the gene treatments. So that's my, the bright spots in the future. I really want to see that, receiving one treatment and, being okay for the rest of your life. So, and this would help so many rare diseases. It would be, amazing to see it working for a lot more diseases than it is now.
Thanks, Vesna. Dan, I think you've touched on where you're looking to go in the future and what your aims are, but I mean, it'd be good to just hear you think about where you want to be in the next few years and how you want to push your message out for them.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just thinking, my opportunity to be a live case presentation for the hereditary colon cancer platform at the University of Michigan as well as the University of Texas. I also was part of a team on a panel in Hawaii with Triple Army Medical Center and the University of Hawaii, John A. Burns School of Medicine, sharing my journey. It takes me back to when I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Lynch and really get to know him. Let me just give you a little history. At 16 years old, in 1944, he joined the Navy because of the World War II, and he did his 2 years of active duty. Then he got out, and he was a boxer. He's 6'5", and he was a boxer. His name was Hammerin' Hank, and he married his neighborhood sweetheart because he didn't finish high school. So his wife Janet, she says, she says, Henry, you're going to have to find another gig because this boxing gig isn't going to do it for you. So he ended up working on his education. He ended up becoming a medical doctor with numerous degrees in psychology, genetics, and he was actually a proctologist. And in the early 60s, he had a lot of patients that were passing away of colon cancer. He thought that colon cancer may not just be environmental, maybe hereditary. So he started filing for requesting grants to do hereditary cancer research. And one after another, year after year, kept getting denied. And they said, Henry, you're way off. So long story short, perseverance. So for me personally, I'm living in the most perfect time because my entire life up until the time he passed away, he's been devoted to hereditary cancer research. Now, the reason I'm talking about the history is I want to help educate the GI students in the different universities, not just locally, but internationally. If you look back to when the DNA double helix was discovered by Crick and Watson, that was on February 28th of 1953. Okay, so of course that's why Rare Disease Day is on the last day of February, right? So back up to the 1860s when Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics. I mean, we're making progress. It's taken time. So now I've got the torch to carry to continue the legacy of Dr. Lynch, and I want to do that by sharing my journey with the GI students at the various universities, the various platforms. So that way we can get it from the deck plate, as we call it in the Navy, or the grassroots. And because now all these GI doctors and colorectal surgeons, they're way past their school days. So let's hit them while they're in school. I even was a participant of a rare disease group that was in high school in southern New Jersey. I mean, this is awesome. So I know that there's other ones out there. There's other groups out there, and we just keep, I'm what you call a pleasant pest. I just keep reminding. If I don't hear back, I'll just keep reminding the individual or group. I mean, you probably got some of my emails as well about different things. So but it's all in the to bring awareness. You know, I have a passion for this. This is my life. I live for this because Dr. Lynch, he had the perseverance to, you know, I mean, Lynch syndrome, it's named after him. And he's, like I said, he's discovered attenuated FAP. So whatever I can do to share my journey on whatever platform and, you know, internationally, for as long as I can. That's my plan. And, you know, where we go from here, I mean, you know, the sky is the limit. And by the way, I have a mantra that I made for the mutation AFAP, and that my mantra, it's a positive spin on a bleak diagnosis, and the mantra is always forge ahead with a purpose, because that's what my life is. I mean, I'm forging ahead to, you know, continue the legacy of Dr. Lynch. And just a couple of months ago, I created another mantra for another acronym for AFAP, and that's advocacy from across the pond. So that also has a lot to do with the world map behind me. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You do it, Dan. No, thank you. It's a brilliant summary, and everyone can really hear your passion and the dedication to it. And a few things really kind of punch out from what you said, the perseverance there, which everyone here is exhibiting and everyone needs in the world of rare diseases. And you're absolutely right. Whatever your mission or purpose is, you've got to persevere and keep going through whatever roadblocks come across in front of you. And then obviously you kind of pulled out that thread of that individual, the researcher or the doctor, every now and again, who decides they're going to focus on a condition for whatever reason. There's a curiosity, and those people can make a huge difference to diseases countless times. So that segues me to Zainab. No pressure. What's your future?
Obviously, I'm very interested in myasthenia gravis. So, as Nora was mentioning, more companies are becoming involved in, rare disease, autoimmune disease, and I was even looking. It's as expected, as it's becoming more of a worldwide problem. More people with autoimmune diseases are surviving and passing them on, and it kind of ties into the money and all those aspects. But I really hope that I can be one of those people that really drive the research in the right way, not just for myasthenia, but for all the rare diseases. And I really think, hopefully, I hope that I can make a change. And I think medical curriculums really need to really have more of a focus on rare disease, because it's not only the role of the specialists who want to specialize in that area or have specialist interests, because we all had to start from the base really of general practice or any, and they're the people we presented to, and our diagnoses for the majority of us were dismissed, and it's because there's not enough of a general knowledge about what we have to go through or the signs and symptoms. And I'm not saying everybody has to be a specialist in epilepsy, a specialist in MG, a specialist in occipital horn. They don't have to be, but they just have to understand what to look out for. And I think that's something that really needs to be done. And also, I think a really big thing that is often overlooked is support for the families and carers, because a lot of the time they change their lives for the people who have the rare diseases. And I know my own family, they won't plan to go somewhere if they know I can't go on a huge walk, or even going on holiday now, they think about, is it too hot a country for me with MG? Will I be able to go through it all? And they make a lot of sacrifices as well. So I think there needs to be more support for the mothers, fathers, aunts, brothers, sisters, because they give up a lot, even though people don't see it. And we often feel like burdens, even though they never see us as that. They always see us as their loved one. So I think there needs to be more support for them as well.
Well said, Zainab. You're doing a brilliant job here, and thank you for everything you've shared. You're getting loads of everyone here is getting loads of appreciation in chat, I will say, but brilliant words from everybody. David, I've kind of left it to you to wrap things up, and I hope that's not too much pressure, but I think there's things you'd like to add to feed off what Zainab said, and obviously in your position at Rare Revolution, you do get a bit of a global view of what's going on in rare diseases, and I think it would be great for you to kind of sum up what you think you'd like to see in the future and in the whole situation.
Yeah, I think probably first, I just want to acknowledge everybody on this panel, and I feel very lucky to be surrounded by people with all sorts of different conditions and different stakeholder kind of capacities, whether it's parents or people with a rare disease themselves. It's always nice doing these kind of discussions, because there's always lots of interesting things come at it, and you realise how humble everyone is in the rare disease space. There's people doing amazing work, and because it's in this kind of space, you're just like, oh, I'm just doing this, just doing that. And it's only when you actually stop and realize what everyone's doing. You know, people are doing some amazing work, whether that's for working with pharma companies or working with medical professionals or running patient groups, or what. It kind of doesn't really matter what it is. Like, everyone is doing a lot of great work. And I think for me personally, I think a little bit of it is a bit like what Dan was saying. You know, I've not anywhere near to this level, but I've tried to do a lot of work with the medical students that I've come across, and just the medical professionals that I see, and it kind of feeds a little bit of a plug to what Medics for Rare Diseases do. And I think that's such a great organisation. I'm very powerful with that. I think it's something that, you know, every opportunity I get, if there's any kind of medical professionals coming in and they say, oh, can you bring students in? I've always said yes. And I've done it in all sorts of different setups, sometimes after surgery, sometimes in clinics, all sorts, you know, GP practice. I'm always very willing to learn, because the value that those kind of future clinicians and nurses and all sorts of people that are involved, they will only learn from, especially people with rare diseases or ultra rare diseases, they'll only really learn properly from seeing somebody in person and getting that kind of real world experience, rather than just reading about it in a textbook. And there aren't even textbooks for people like me a lot of the time, so you feel like you kind of have to do that. And I think that, you know, working as a separate thing, you know, working in rare disease, I've seen so many amazing things, you know, through the magazine, and I've, you know, that I'm very familiar with Dan and lots of different people in Vesna in the rare disease space. And, you know, you meet people all over the world and you kind of take it for granted a little bit. And actually, like I've just said, like, you don't realize the amount of actually, you know, amazing work that's going on in all different kind of setups. And just wanted to kind of acknowledge everybody, not just people that are on this panel, but broadly speaking, everybody that's listening, and maybe that people couldn't make it here today. Like, keep up what you're doing, because it's making a huge difference, and just be aware of that.
David, thank you. I think that's the perfect way to wrap up this panel. You guys, I cannot thank you enough. Most of you've been stuck with my face for 2 hours, 45 minutes. You persevered with that, and I can only thank you for that. We had a little chat before we went live, guys, to get ready for this, and the endurance shown by the panel just in getting through this is amazing. The stories you've shared, the quality of your comments have been hugely appreciated by the audience. So thank you guys immensely. That now leaves it to me to try and wrap up this event, this epic 3-day marathon we've been through. And I will try and do that with a few slides. So give me a moment while I, you know, gather my thoughts, get my screen visible for you. I've called it, it's the end of the Rare Disease Showcase. It's the end of the beginning, guys. It's the end of the beginning of Beacon, obviously. It's the end of the beginning of your chance to continue watching this material, okay? Our swap card platform that you're all hopefully watching us through now is going to remain open on demand for viewing throughout February. So please watch. You know, there's a lot of great content on there. And we know with a virtual event, it's really hard to sit and watch constantly all the time and every day. We've put on a lot of content here, but this is available for you to look at. So if you do anything over the next month, pick one session that you did not go to in a region you might not have thought to look at, and have a look at it, because there's been some great presentations talking about the work that's going on all over the world, and it has the chance to open up connections for you and your community that you might not have thought of. So please do check that out. If you want to know what we're up to as an organization, you can follow us on social media on pretty much every channel out there. We've got the same handle now, Rare Beacon. That's on Twitter, that's on Instagram, that's on LinkedIn, on Facebook. There's probably some YouTube happening as well. Just have a look and please keep an eye on what we're doing. We're hopefully going to have projects and ideas out there that can help you and your communities move forward. And if nothing else, a nice chance to chat to other people in the rare disease world. Clearly as well, we have a newsletter which you can find at our new website, www.rarebeacon.org. Check that out and sign up. Do bear with us on the website and certain bits. Little accounts still have a Find a Cure logo here and there. There's still some little things we're working on to make sure things are mobile responsive, but please do check it out, send us feedback, and we'd love to hear what you think on that. And on that feedback point, we need your feedback on this event. We've put a lot of work into this. I'm really pleased with how it's gone, and the response we've seen from you guys on the chat so far has been brilliant. But there are a survey that's going to be coming out at the end of the event within the platform, within the chat, I think, in this session now, and also you'll be emailed, no doubt, by Mary Rose in a day or two, asking for you to give us your comments. We want any and all feedback. We know we haven't got everything perfect, that's for sure. There's definitely things we can improve on, and please tell us what you want to hear about for these kind of events and from us as an organization, and we'll do our very best to listen to you and deliver that. So thank you for that. just to incentivize you to give that feedback, we have cash prizes for those that enter. Okay, so there's a draw, there's 3 cash prizes, everyone loves a bit of cash, so throw your hat in the ring for that as well. Make it hard for us. I want feedback from all over the world to have to figure out international transactions. Let's make this challenging. All right. Right, so we're in February. Okay, we're doing this in February to start the build up to the epic thing that is Rare Disease Day 2022, everybody. And we're going to have Rare Disease Day, which is designed to bring the world together, much like we've tried to do at our showcase. So it's incumbent upon me to mention, for those of you in the UK, which many of our audience will be, that Rare Disease UK have now launched their Rare Disease Day mini site. It's live. Please go out there and check it. You can see the URL here. And there are ways you can get involved with that UK campaign for rare diseases by submitting a story into their rare disease repository, and you can help to light up a virtual window, and that's all going to help to raise awareness about rare diseases in your rare condition. So please check that out. They've also got resources on there to personalize your kind of social media assets. They've got something on Canva, which all my team love, which is great. And you can share videos that will be released later in the month as well. And they're also letting you take over their Twitter or Instagram, which seems like a great idea to me if you're into that kind of thing. So sign up, engage with this, and let's make Rare Disease Day huge. If you are not in the UK, Rare Disease, that URL, just drop the UK from it, and you can go to the Rare Disease org website and see how you can get involved. Make sure that we're sharing information about Rare Disease Day to make it as huge as we possibly can. I'm also going to plug a project that we've been working on at Beacon for a while, one that Phil in particular has been slaving away at for a long time, which is our new podcast called Rarely Heard. This is a podcast we've been putting together in collaboration with Same But Different, and it's been a real pleasure working with them and the patients' stories we've been putting out on it. The aim of this podcast is just to share stories like we've been hearing today in this panel, stories from people about how they're living their lives with rare conditions and the way it's impacted them, in particular focusing on the mental health and challenges that are there. We have a series of 8 different episodes, and the 7th episode came out yesterday, I believe. So, please do check it out. The first episode of promoting here is with Shelley Simmons, who's a well-known advocate in the world of Duchenne. And the stories that are told here by Phil and Il-Marie and all the people they're interviewing are fantastic. So we'd love it if you check this out, particularly please if you subscribe, because that's going to help us get more attention for these rare stories. And even more if you would leave some feedback and reviews to tell people, well, what you think about it. I'm not going to ask you to say it's good. Just tell us the truth, and we'll continue to make better versions of this in the future. So please do check this out if you have the time. Obviously, as we wrap up the event, it's really important once more to thank the people who've helped give us the funding and money to put this on. It takes a lot of time, money and effort, and we couldn't do it without our corporate partners. So corporate partner Helix, who've really supported us for a number of years now, we're really grateful to you. All our gold sponsors, Pulse Infraframe, Barnacle, EMAS and Apparito, who are all involved in giving some great breakout sessions throughout the event. Silver sponsor, Use of Pharma, and our bronze sponsors, Gilead, PTC Therapeutics, Roche and Rhythm. We really need the support, and I'm grateful to you for believing in this event. Even though it's virtual, seeing that kind of support is amazing. Okay, and the final thing to do is for me to thank the Beacon team, but in particular these 2 members of the Beacon team. They have been working tirelessly for a long time. Mary Rose works tirelessly infinitely, but nonetheless, they've been putting this together, slaving away to find a way to get this platform up and running, to help coordinate a vast number of speakers, to set up more Zoom links than I care to possibly consider, and to make it all function. So Mary Rose and Hannah in particular, thank you so much for the work you've done on this. I think it's been a huge success, and hopefully in the chat now you're all joining me in thanking them in particular. If you want to show your faces, guys, to be virtually applauded by myself, you may, but I suspect you'll hide away. It is a team effort on all this, guys, so we really appreciate all the team behind the scenes. And finally, I kind of appreciate you guys in the audience and the speakers who've been here. It's really hard to put something on, but it's nothing without the participation of our audience and the speakers to share the stories. All we're doing is giving a platform to the work that you're doing, and hopefully you all have made some connections, some ideas for the future. We can't wait to see what you do. Thank you for attending the International Rare Disease Showcase with Beacon. Please leave your feedback. Have a chat to me, £50. There's a QR code there to do it with you. I'm going to shut up and go and lay down. All the best. Have a lovely, lovely evening, and no doubt you'll see me again soon. Thank you.